We've got Game 3 of the NBA Finals tonight in Boston between the Warriors, recent three-time champs, and of course the upstart Celtics. And if you read everything on that screen in front of you, what it says is, obviously the Celtics are going to win tonight. Come on, 6-0 after a loss this postseason. Welcome into the sweat. I am Adam Kaufman. We're going to jump right into NBA Finals talk with, of course, our great crew of analysts. We've got a couple joining us here. We've got Matt Meiselman, DK contributor, who has been all in on the C's going back to early January, and we're going to preach that every single day for Mr. Preaching Sense on Twitter. And Nick Whalen is here with us as well from RotoWire. Guys, NBA Finals Game 3 best bets, taking a look at some of the top plays, obviously, in this one. I said it, or really the graphic said it. Of course Boston's going to win. Meiselman, you tell me, minus 160 on the money line on the DK Sportsbook. Is that number too steep to take straight up?
Yeah, I mean, you already know what I'm going to say. No, it's not too steep.
Of course it's not. Come on.
It's always the Celtics. I'll take the Celtics basically every game. I did change my mind at the end of last series against Miami for a couple games there where I did think the lines got out of hand. So maybe it's not entirely a given that I'm just picking the Celtics every game no matter what. But I do think the Celtics are the better team by probably a few points, and they have home court advantage. And 3.5 points just doesn't seem high enough to me. So I do think they should be favored by 5, maybe 6, 6.5, something like that. I'm not totally buying into the idea that the Celtics are just way better off a loss. They're quite good off wins too. So that narrative, I don't like that so much. I just think that the number is too low for reasons that have more to do with the quality of the two teams.
Waylon, we were just showing it on the board, obviously. It all moves. It's all in flux right now. Minus 150 from the minus 160 that I mentioned before. What do you think of the Celtics tonight?
Yeah, apparently the odds makers, heard Matt's breakdown there and said, we got to shift it a little more toward Golden State. It's tough. I think it makes sense. Like Matt said, you see the 3.5, and if you like Boston, it's pretty easy to imagine Boston winning by 4, 5, 6, 7 points. It feels like a lot of these games throughout the playoffs, if one team is in control, more often than not, you're going to end up getting a bigger spread at the end of the game. So if you like Boston, I have no problem chasing that 3.5 here. I mean, you're looking at minus 110. With the spread, minus 150 on the money line, not a huge difference there. But it kind of pains me to say this. I'm a Bucks guy. You guys are Celtics guys. I feel like I've always just overrun with Celtics talk on this show, but I like Boston tonight. I really do. I don't know that I would go as far as to say they are definitively the better team. I still think Golden State, and I hate kind of using these kind of platitudes, but the finals experience of Golden State cannot be overstated. And it's not like they've been there once. They've been there 5 times, with this core. And I really think that is going to be a factor as the series goes along. But stealing game 1 in Golden State was huge. Getting to come home now in front of a crowd that's going to be going nuts. I thought the crowd at the Chase Center was not great in game 2, for the record. I don't think that's going to be the case in games 3 or 4 here in Boston. I think we're going to see a more comfortable Jason Tatum. We're going to see a more consistent Jaylen Brown. I think we're going to see a better effort from the Boston role players. So as much as it pains me to say this, again, I will roll with the Celtics minus 3.5 tonight.
We know, Nick, we have a couple of talented defenses here. The total tonight is 212 on the DK Sportsbook. You can take a look at it right here. Minus 110 on either side. But what do you think? Over or under?
I like the under here. And I really like the under in game 1. It felt like, to me, that was the right bet. Obviously, the onslaught that Boston put up in the fourth quarter erased that immediately. But game 2 went way under. And now we're getting a slightly lower total in game 3. But as these final series progress, you tend to get slower games. Possessions really, really matter. And you see the defense kind of get cranked up. And part of that is it's the NBA Finals. And, the stakes couldn't be higher. But part of it, too, is as the series goes along, you're playing a team 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times in a row. You're going to start to understand tendencies. The blown coverages that we saw, especially on the Boston side in games 1 and 2, I think those are going to be tightened up as the series goes along. Losing Steph Curry, giving him 5 wide open threes early in game 1. Things like that are going to be tightened up as the series goes along. And, even with the pace in game 2 being played quite a bit faster than game 1, and with the pace was 97, 98 possessions per 100. That's up 6 or 7 possessions from game 1. Even with that game comfortably went under. So I think we're going to kind of continue to see that. And until the odds makers bump that total down a little bit, I'm pretty happy to keep rolling with the under here.
Meiselman, 228 points in game 1, 195 in game 2. Like I said, we're basically splitting the difference with the 212 here. Over or under?
So my short answer is I don't really like either of them. I think it's a fair total. My slightly longer answer is I agree with Nick that I guess that like as a series progresses, you will start to see games get lower scoring. Teams are more familiar with how the other plays offense, but the personnel for these games is it seems like it's changing a little bit. We didn't have Gary Payton in game 1. We had him in game 2. Now him and Otto Porter are questionable for game 3. I'm anticipating not seeing as much Daniel Tice, which I think will help the over. It's going to help the Celtics defense, but I think most importantly, it'll help them get into a better flow offensively and play at a better pace. So maybe the over benefits there, but the reason I don't like the totals that much in this series is because the officiating is just so unpredictable.
Sure.
And I think ultimately the refs have a larger impact on the total than a lot of these schemes, these schematic changes do. And I have no idea what we're going to see, right? Like we all saw what happened in game 2. The officiating was, I'll just leave it at weird. So that's why like I kind of just want to stay away from it because the refs can really dictate how the flow of this game goes.
Look, man, I'll say it. The officiating was great in game 1. Didn't even notice it. In game 2, rough on both sides. And we've got Scott Foster tonight, so who knows what that's going to bring, obviously. But let's keep going with the DraftKings Sportsbook, Mize. Points prop. What do you like best for tonight? Some really interesting options, including, and it's basically at even money, minus 105, but Al Horford, 11.5 for a bounce back.
Yeah, that's where I was first looking. I don't really love it. Like, I think Horford will play better, but I think that number's kind of right for him. I'm going to make a pick that I've already made a couple times in this series, and that's the under on Steph Curry. I'll just take the best scorer in the series and go under there because I think the Celtics are going to play smaller. I think they're going to do a better job just not leaving him open. And if we really think about this matchup, like this should be a brutal matchup for Steph Curry. It was in game 1 after the first quarter. Like it was just so difficult for him to get open shots. And then game 2, we were basically just letting Draymond Green set any kind of screen that he wanted to. And I can't anticipate that happening again in game 3. I just don't think Curry can get the shot attempts up when defenders like White and Smart and even Pritchard to some extent, maybe Brown a little bit too, like they're just going to be in his face all game. I think as the series goes along, Curry's just going to have to pass more because he's obviously the main guy on this Warriors team that can score. And especially now with Klay Thompson clearly just, I mean, I already thought Klay Thompson was overrated. He's having a rough start to the series. He hasn't had the best playoffs overall either. So I think the Celtics realize that, and they're going to just focus even more on Curry. It's going to make him have to give up the ball. So I kind of like the under here at 28.5 points.
Nick, Klay's looking for the self-motivation. He's been YouTubing himself. He's looking at Game 6 Klay clips.
I like Klay to have a big game at some point in the series. I'm not quite confident enough that it comes tonight. I don't think he's going 1 of 8 from 3 again. I disagree with the sentiment that he's overrated. I think he's certainly benefited from playing alongside Curry and playing in this system. There's no doubt about that. But he's essentially a 3-point specialist. You don't necessarily think of him as this like Kyle Korver type because his game, at least pre-injury, was a lot more diverse than that. But players like that, when you're that 3-point reliant, you're going to go through swings. There's going to be nights where you go 1 of 8. There's going to be nights where you go 8 of 12. Like he did in that, I think it was 8 of 14 actually in that closeout game against Dallas. But I think Matt is spot on the Steph Curry prop. It was a little concerning to me that it looked like he was on pace for like 60 points in game 1 and didn't even get to 30 in that game. Had Boston not had so many just kind of mental lapses, confusion on defense, I don't think Curry has the quarter that he did to begin this series. And if you watch, matchup to matchup, it really hasn't mattered who's guarding him. Like he's really having a tough time creating space, getting by guys, whether it's Derek White, whether it's Al Horford switching out. Like, not that Steph Curry is someone that's like constantly blowing by guys for layups, but he's having a difficult time. He's having to go through a series of moves to try to create space. And I think, with the series shifting to Boston, Matt made a great point. You're not going to be able to get away with Draymond Green getting a running start from half court and just like bulldozing as many guys as he can, like Orlando Pace. So that's something to keep an eye on. I think that number is a little bit too high. And I also like Jason Tatum. This number is it's goosed a little bit to the over, 27.5 minus 125. But Tatum only played like 30 minutes in game 2 and clearly would have gone for probably 30, 35 plus over the course of a like normal game where it's not a blowout. I don't think this one's a blowout. I think he probably plays close to 40 minutes. And that's, for a player of his caliber at home, that's more than enough to go over 27.5.
Well, you know you've lost when your head coach pulls all the starters with 10 minutes left in the game. You know, that was some serious waving of the white flag. Both you guys, you've been perusing the DK Sportsbook all morning long. Let's finish with your favorite overall bet for Game 3. What do you think, Nick?
You know, I really do like that Tatum bet, and I also like the under on 5.5 points for Robert Williams. And part of that is I just don't think he looked very good health-wise in Game 2. I know he had, I think he had a alley-oop dunk where he, got up okay, had a couple blocks, but even before Marcus Smart kind of rolled up into his knee and ankle, he just, part of it's just how he runs, but he just didn't look comfortable. And, obviously you never wish for a player to be injured or be less than 100%, but from a betting perspective, I'm kind of looking at that under 5.5 and thinking, I think they roll him out there. Maybe he doesn't look great early on, and we don't see him again the rest of the game. They just roll with Al Horford. They roll with Grant Williams, maybe even Daniel Tice up front. So, for a guy coming off of a 2 points in 14 minutes game, I think 5.5 is a little high for me.
Meiselman, what do you think?
Okay, well, you know what my answer is going to be here, too. It's just all Celtics things, winning spread.
Celtics money line, everything.
I like them all roughly equally. Well, one thing to call out quickly, though, Gary Payton II and Otto Porter Jr. are both questionable for this game. They were not questionable for Game 2. We had them on the injury report for Game 1, but they were not for Game 2. So that could actually, unlike Robert Williams, who's going to be questionable the whole series, those guys actually could be out. So if one or both of them ends up not playing, I'm going to really, really like the Celtics a lot more than I already do. Like, the analysis I've already given is not dependent. It's with the assumption that they're in. If they're out, this gets even better for Boston. So maybe my favorite bet is just laying 3.5 points. I don't mind going into some of the alternate lines. Like, we get a lot of weird blowouts in the playoffs, like where we're not expecting them. And I don't expect a blowout, but Celtics -7 is plus 165 and Celtics -9 is plus 215. Like, I don't dislike any of that. I think the Celtics should be able to win somewhat comfortably in this game, whether it's by 6 points, 10 points, 15 points, I don't know, but I definitely like the C's for this game.
See, I've never heard a better way to end a segment than all of that. Nick, we're going to let you enjoy the rest of your day. Matt's going to join us again for some NBA Showdown DFS talk later on in the program. We have got golf coming up, also baseball. In fact, a little bit later on in the program, we're going to be joined by the Rocket, the handsome devil himself, Jared Carabas, for the takeoff. Are we ready to say it? 6 straight wins for the Red Sox. Can we say it? Can we say it yet? He'll let us know if we can say it. Baseball talk on the way. Interesting night on the diamond last night. You see some of Tuesday's top MLB scores, including the ageless wonder Justin Verlander at the top, all 39 years young, about 37 fantasy points, 7 innings, 6 hits for the Astros, 1 earned run, a dozen strikeouts. He was awesome. Let's get into MLB DFS and Sportsbook talk. We're bringing in a couple of great contributors to this program. From one Nick to another, Nick Fryer is going to join us for the next couple of segments. We also have Gary and Thorne, 2 DK contributors. Gary only agreed to come back today because Steve Buchanan was not on the segment. It's MLB Cover Your Bases, top plays for the slate. Gary, we begin with you, my friend. First base, favorite pitcher DFS tonight?
I did win yesterday. I'll say that. So I'm not scared of Steve.
However, I didn't say you were scared. I just said you didn't enjoy his company.
Oh well, I don't want to like say anything like that.
Again, I said it, not you.
Fair. Let's talk about Nathan Avaldi. I'm perplexed often about how he's priced this season. I understand he's had some serious issues with the home run ball, But his last 3 starts have been fantastic. He scored over 30 DraftKings points in every single one of those outings. He's got a 30.9% strikeout rate within that span of time, and yet he's only $8,800 going up against a team that has lost 13 consecutive games. I mean, talk about win expectancy in this spot for a starter. I think Avaldi has some pretty good win expectancy going up against the Angels. Los Angeles hasn't been able to score any runs in the past 2 weeks, which, makes sense. It lines up with the results we've seen, but they have just a 270 WOBA in that span of time. That is the second lowest mark in all of baseball. They also have the second highest strikeout rate in baseball across the last 2 weeks at 24.9%. They've lost Anthony Rendon within this span. They've lost Taylor Ward within this span. And then Mike Trout leaves last night's game with a groin injury. I would be shocked if Mike Trout is in the lineup tonight. So you've got like Shohei Ohtani and no one else on this Angels lineup. I think Evaldi's the best play by far on this slate.
And Garion's a Blue Jays fan, so that's how you know he is completely unbiased and impartial here in this segment. Best DFS option tonight on the mound, Nick. What do you say?
Yeah, I'm going to pick on a West Coast team as well. As much as I do like Gonsolin and Cortez, when you're looking at the higher price guys, I did want to highlight a lower price guy at Ian Anderson, 6.4K. I know Kyle Wright got roughed up for a couple runs in the first inning against the A's last night, but then he locked them down, pitched 8 innings, 7 strikeouts. I know it doesn't necessarily translate from day to day, but when you look at what the A's have done against right-handed pitching this season, it stands to reason to think that Anderson is going to have a breakout performance because he struggled over the last 3 outings as much as he did strike out 9 Rockies last time out. The A's are last in OPS, last in WOBA against right-handed pitching. They're tied for second to last in ISO against right-handed pitching, 7th highest K rate against right-handed pitching. And I know Anderson, as much as he got those 9 strikeouts, he's not he's not a strikeout pitcher by any means, but he can rack them up in the right spot. And I think tonight's the right spot for him.
Since this is MLB Cover Your Bases, we're making our way around the diamond. That was first base. Let's go to second base, and we'll stay with you, Fryer. Best infielder in DFS.
Yeah, I like there's the Red Sox game that I like quite a bit, but then there's also the Yankees game that I like quite a bit. The Yankees side of it going up against Chris Archer. Anthony Rizzo specifically at 5.5K. Obviously, he's been doing well of late, but in general, we're looking at some of his numbers over the last 20 games, and I know he's got a 278 ISO. He's got against right-handed pitching, 4 home runs, 3 doubles, 43.2% hard contact rate. But during that span against right-handed pitching, he has a 150 BABIP still. So I know he's going to get strikeouts and things like that too, but that doesn't track that he's got that low of a BABIP despite what he's doing in terms of hard contact. Chris Archer has done well against left-handed hitting this season in terms of VRA, 1.72, great, but his FIP, 4.80, and he's got a 48.9% fly ball rate against left-handed hitting this season. So I love Rizzo in this spot.
Coming off that impressive 18-point game. Garion.
Yeah, I'm going to go with some recency bias here. It seems like Marcus Semion has finally woken up. He's got 5 home runs so far in June. He's actually got a 484 isolated power and a 515 WOBA within the month. It's only 32 plate appearances, but this is someone who 2 times in the last 3 years coming into 2022 had been top 3 in AL MVP voting. So I think you can kind of prorate a tiny sample like this and say, this guy's back. And he's doing fine. Semion's only $4,700 because of the struggles. He's kind of worked his way back up from below 4K as he's slowly been hitting the ball again. And I think this is a pretty good matchup. It's an opposite hand matchup against Connor Pilkington, who's been fine. He's survived, I would say, his 6 appearances so far this season. But he's someone who's got a high walk rate, a high barrel rate. That's a really bad combination. And for the season as a whole, the Rangers have been so much better against left-handed pitching than they have been against right-handed pitching. They basically go from like an 85 WRC plus as a team to a 110 WRC plus against Southpaws. So I think as a whole, this Texas lineup is in a good spot, and that's only going to help add to the value of Marcus Semien.
To the hot corner. Garion, we need your favorite outfielder tonight.
So apparently I made my criteria for being selected must have hit 2 home runs in yesterday's games because I will take Ronald Acuna Jr. as another extremely hot hitter. He's got 3 home runs in his last 2 games. He's crazy expensive. He's $6,200, but he is going up against a guy making his major league debut in Jared Koenig. I don't know.
I'm not going to correct you.
But Acuna against any left-handed pitcher, even if he's making his 15,000th start, I have some sort of interest in. So far this season, he's got a 488 expected WOBA against left-handed pitching. And you go back to last season, this isn't some sort of like small sample aberration. He had a 175 WRC plus against Southpaws. So when you've got Acuna, who's feeling it right now, seeing the ball really well, hitting out of that leadoff spot for Atlanta, so maybe he gets 5 plate appearances in this contest, not just against the rookie, but also against a, underwhelming Athletics bullpen. I think he's going to be able to pull off this big salary.
Nick, do you also have a guy who socked a couple dingers yesterday?
I do not, but I do think Acuna is a great play. He was one of the guys I was looking at as well. But as I'm looking down the list of outfielders available, I would think that people are going to be interested in Aaron Judge, even though he doesn't have big numbers against Chris Archer. You can say the same about Acuna. But you go a little bit further down, still expensive at 5.2K. I mentioned I like the Red Sox game. JD Martinez is not as hot as he was earlier in the season, but he's starting to pick it up a little bit of late. He's got a back-to-back 2-hit games, doubled in each of those games. And one number that I found too interesting to ignore, he hasn't homered since May 17th, and then Detmers has not been good since May 17th. So maybe I'm pushing it a little bit, but I like this matchup here for JD Martinez. In general, Detmers has not been great since his no-no. It was a 3.82 FIP, a 4.80 expected FIP. For me, I know that Detmers has done pretty poorly against left-handed hitters as well, but when I see that 54.8% fly ball rate against right-handed hitting over his last 3 starts, I gotta think that JD Martinez is going to break out for that first dinger of the month.
I can tell you, I did not know this was Detmer's slander week on the Sweat, but between yesterday and today, heavy.
Well, if he keeps getting scratched, you just have to keep talking about him every single game.
Home plate DFS value. What do you say, Nick?
So I'm going to go a little bit on the higher end of the value here. Nick Castellanos at 4.1K going up against the Brewers, against Adrian Hauser, a guy who I generally like to pick on, especially last season. Obviously been better this season for the most part, but Castellanos has done well against Adrian Hauser throughout the course of his career, something I look at a lot when I'm looking at value plays, even on the higher end. 8 for 23, 3 doubles and a home run. One of those doubles came earlier in the season when Hauser pitched against the Phillies. And look, I know Castellanos, you look at that average and you think, it's not exactly appealing. But when I look at some of his numbers over the last 21 games against right-handed hitting, I mean, he's got a 34% hard contact rate, only a 10% soft contact rate. And again, talking about BABIP, only a 208 BABIP in the course of that, despite a lot of quality contact. So he's too good a hitter for these struggles to maintain. So yeah, I'm backing him after that 2-hit performance yesterday.
Plus, Gary, and maybe he'll have a deep fly ball to left field.
He might. Depends if they're talking about something serious in the booth. That's kind of his calling card at this point. I'm going to go with Ian Happ, who, yes, has been a lot better as a right-handed hitter than he's been as a left-handed hitter so far in 2022. But he's not been bad as a lefty. He's got a 112 WRC plus. He's been 12% better than league average against right-handed pitching so far this season. And the right-hander he gets to face on Wednesday is Jordan Lyles, who has really struggled with left-handed bats. Lefties are hitting 304 with a 391 WOBA against Jordan Lyles so far this season. Happ obviously is going to be batting in the top half of that Cubs lineup. And also, maybe the Orioles bring in a left-handed reliever and he really gets to showcase his talents as a right-handed hitter. But as it stands, he's just been hitting the cover off the baseball in the month of June. It's only a 31 plate appearance sample size, but he's got a 198 WRC plus so far in the month. So Happ's hot. Lyles is not good against left-handed batters, and I think that's the perfect combination on Wednesday.
I can't tell you guys we're going to talk DK Sportsbook without actually talking about DK Sportsbook. So let's do that before we get out of here. Our extra base hit, Gary, and your favorite bet baseball tonight.
So I could see this one being a little worrisome for people because the Astros are arguably the hottest team in baseball across the last 5-6 weeks. But I like Seattle's money line tonight. They are plus 125 as road underdogs. The Astros are a tough team to beat, but I just think the starting pitching matchup is heavily in favor of the Mariners here. Logan Gilbert has been fantastic so far this season. The last time he faced the Astros, he shut them out across 7 innings. I'm not saying he can do that again necessarily. However, Jose Urquidy has a 6.09 expected ERA so far this season. He has been easily the weak link in that amazing Astros rotation. I just think this should be closer to a pick'em, so I'm going to take Seattle plus 125.
Got a robust over-under right under that. 10 runs in the Diamondbacks and Reds. Favorite bet on the sports book tonight, Nick?
Yeah, so I'm going to go back to one of the players that I highlighted earlier from the Red Sox game, JD Martinez, over 1.5 total bases tonight. I think when you're looking at him, you're looking at Devers. I'm pretty sure they have the same payout. You could go either way with these two guys, but Martinez is my ultimate favorite one just because I think too much adds up going up against Detmers. If you want to take him for a home run, dart throw too as well, I don't blame you there. Again, it's been a long time since JD Martinez has hit a home run against left-handed pitching or just in general. So I think that tonight, 1.5 total bases out, that's my easy one.
We'll do a little bit more NBA and golf later on in the show. We're here with you until almost noon, but special treat for you. We do it every week. We're going to step aside when we come back. Had the opportunity earlier in a different shirt to chat with the one and only Jared Carrabis, the Rocket, for the takeoff. Stay tuned. It is time now for our weekly check-in with Jared Carrabis, a little segment we like to call The Takeoff. Jared gives us his take on the latest storylines across Major League Baseball. Jared, I mean, it's close to home for you, both literally and figuratively. And of course, I'm talking about the Boston Red Sox. You know I follow pretty closely as well. And this team, it's hot right now, putting some wins together, albeit about, maybe some bottom of the barrel competition. That to me, the people that shout that out, Jared, those are the excuse makers. Here's what I want to know. Are you ready? You going to say it? Are you going to say it?
I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it until June 28th, but I came prepared with some numbers. I did some digging this morning. I tweeted this out. Since Alex Cora shaved his beard on May 10th, the Boston Red Sox have the second best record in baseball. They're 18-8. They have the best offense in baseball. That is a fact. That is not an opinion. They lead Major League Baseball in batting average, on base, slugging, OPS, hits, doubles, runs, extra base hits, and total bases. I mean, what are we talking about here? This is the best offense in baseball. We've had this conversation a million times on here, but when are the Red Sox going to hit? The answer to that question is when Alex Cora shaves his beard. He shaved it. They are the best offense in baseball. That's a fact.
I mean, I just wish he'd done it a couple weeks earlier. They'd be that much better right now.
100%.
Well, we'll take it. We'll take whatever we can get, obviously. One of the little strings of success right now that the Red Sox are having, of course, that sweep in Oakland. And your podcast co-host, Dallas Braden, who everybody, I think, is familiar with, who's watching this segment, listens to the pod. And you guys had a little bet, a little friendly wager about that series. Didn't go his way. Is he living up to his end of the bargain?
He's not, and it's very disappointing. He's trying to finagle his way out of this bet, and the bet was, so since I moved into this new apartment, I haven't had anyone clean it. Like I certainly don't know how to clean it whatsoever. So I was like, all right, if the A's get swept by the Boston Red Sox, Dallas Braden is going to have to wear a maid outfit and clean my apartment. And now he's trying to walk it back. Now he's trying to say he didn't say that, but the podcast would indicate that not only did he agree, he doubled and tripled down on it. So it's going to be a bad look when the A's come to town next week and Dallas Braden is not in my apartment wearing a maid outfit cleaning this place.
How many pictures are going to hit social media when that happens? I mean, he's going to be very
document
pretty.
the whole thing. Yeah, we'll document the whole thing. We'll have it on video. We'll tweet out pictures. We'll maybe do like a mini documentary on the whole thing. How do you go from throwing a perfect game in Major League Baseball to wearing a maid outfit cleaning your podcast co-host apartment?
That's the 30 for 30 nobody wants to be part of right there.
100%.
I can't wait to see the short videos all over TikTok. All right, let's talk about the Yankees because, we kind of have to. They lead the AL East, but then you got the Yankees, the Rays, the Sox. They're all in the playoff picture as we're sitting here right now. So do you think this is going to hold? I mean, are we going to see 4 AL East teams in the playoffs with this expanded format?
I think that's the most likely scenario. You look at the field right now, obviously the Angels are falling apart. I think that they'll rebound. But do I think that they're better than the Rays? No. Do I think that they're better than the Blue Jays? No. Do I think that they're better than the Red Sox? No. Things can happen. Obviously, teams with playoff spots can lose 12 straight games and counting. That does happen. But then the rest of the field, Cleveland, Chicago, I don't see it. I mean, with the White Sox, they're at least surprising that they're not performing to the level that we expected them to, but they've had their injuries. Obviously, they DFA'd Dallas Keuchel, who's now with the D-backs. So they've had some things not work out, and they've had their injuries. But as far as talent goes, you could make the case that if you're looking at the Yankees winning the division, and you're looking at the rest of the 3 wild card teams as it fills out, those are the 3 best teams in the American League. They all belong to the American League East.
So I was just going to ask you, I mean, there's always the possibility of these teams kind of beating the hell out of each other along the way, and so you get a couple that finish closer to 500, maybe somebody sneaks in. But let's just say, I don't know, it's not totally top-heavy, and everyone handles the Orioles, and then the other 4, they just do their business against everybody else. Is this the best division across all of baseball, not just the American League?
Yeah, I would say so in terms of length. The NL West is pretty top heavy. I mean, the Padres are legit. I mean, the Dodgers are what they are. They're great every year. But yeah, I mean, in terms of getting 4 teams that could potentially make the postseason, I would say, yeah, you would put the Red Sox in that conversation, or you would put the American League East in that conversation. But in terms of championship contenders, like believing that this team can win a World Series, I happen to like the NL West a lot.
This is how we talk about the Red Sox without talking about the Red Sox, and that is the fact that Martin Perez, a former member of the Red Sox, 31-year-old with a career ERA just south of 5, Jared, prior to this season, is second in the league in ERA. How's he doing this? Can he keep it up? And should we take plus 5,000 odds on the DraftKings Sportsbook for Cy Young seriously?
Yeah, I mean, so Martin Perez, when he signed with the Red Sox, his cutter was terrible. It was just getting absolutely lit up. And once he started abandoning that pitch and started focusing on what he's actually good at, we saw drastic results. This isn't a guy that's out there. I mean, he's pitching to contact a little bit. He's not out there throwing complete game shutouts with 12 strikeouts. I mean, he's getting it done. His first 2 starts, he lasted 4 innings in each of them, gave up 3 earned runs in each of them. And since then, he's had 9 starts with an 0.88 ERA. He's allowed more than 1 earned run once. It was his last time out, and it was 2 earned runs. And he hasn't pitched fewer than 6 innings in his last 9 starts. So that just excludes his first 2 starts of the season. He's pitching with confidence. This is a guy that, we got to know a little bit here in Boston. He's very motivated. He has a chip on his shoulder. I remember having a conversation with him when the Red Sox moved him to the bullpen last year, and he was very discouraged and very upset about that because, you pitch to what your role is for sure. But this is a guy that obviously believed that there was a lot left in the tank and that he could offer more than just some sort of mop up bullpen role. And lo and behold, he goes back to the Texas Rangers, and he's been one of the best pitchers, not just in the American League, but in all of baseball this year.
You're not just the tribal chief of baseball on social media. You're also a big wrestling fan, so I don't want that to get lost here in Survivor Series coming to Boston in a matter of months as well. You're probably pretty excited about that. You were tweeting over the weekend, though. Let's show the people this. Cody Rhodes is a damn madman for actually working a Hell in a Cell match the same day he tore his damn pec off the bone. Holy poop, dude. This man deserves all the respect. What do you think? Like, who's the toughest guy in baseball? Who could handle this? Who could go after that man?
Oh, wow. I mean, I guess the comparison would have to be Bryce Harper, right? I mean, you have Cody Rhodes. And by the way, after Hell in a Cell went off the air, Cody Rhodes grabbed the mic and addressed the crowd and said, hey, I chose to go out there and perform. That was my decision. He needs surgery. He tore his pec off the bone that day, and it's 5 to 6 months to recover from that. And then you have Bryce Harper, another main event guy who tore his UCL, and he's out there just mashing homers. He's like, all right, if I can't throw the baseball, I can't play right field, I guess I'm just going to go out there and mash homers as a DH. And that's what he's doing. He's performing at a high level, and he's got a torn UCL while he's doing it.
As you know, we usually end this segment with giving you the freedom to just tell us your hottest take that's percolating inside that brain of yours. So aside from, totally demeaning tasks for Dallas Braden when he comes into town with the A's, what do you have for us this week?
So here's my hot take, because I'm a big run differential guy. I think it's great for forecasting where teams are going to end up. And we mentioned the American League East. We mentioned the AL wildcard picture. The Red Sox have the best run differential out of all those teams. So what I'm predicting here, my hot take, is that not only will the Red Sox, at the very least, have the top wild card spot at the end of the year, they might contend for the division. I'm just saying, because the Red Sox
you're saying, but you're not saying. You're still not saying it.
I'm not saying it. But the Red Sox Like the Yankees, put it this way, at the beginning of the year, the Red Sox were not as bad as they were playing, and they've proven that. The Yankees, they also haven't faced any adversity yet, really. I mean, they're not as good as they've been playing either. The Red Sox weren't as bad as they've been playing. The Yankees are not as good as they've been playing. So I think when you kind of level that out, do the Red Sox get within 5 games? Do they at least make it interesting in the second half? Let's see what they do at the trade deadline. Can they keep playing as good a baseball as they can? And it starts really next month because the Red Sox have not played good baseball against the American League East. That's been their one Achilles heel, is they have not played good baseball against the American League East, and in their schedule next month is predominantly against American League East teams. So we're going to find out what they're really made of next month.
See, he's saying, he's just not saying
saying it.
He's not saying it. He's saying. So don't worry. Tune in with us every week here. We got the Takeoff. He's Jared Carabas. He's the Rocket. That's the branding right there. So hang with us on the Sweat, the Takeoff everywhere, every single Tuesday. Jared, thanks very much, man.
Thanks for having me.
We're a little more than halfway home here on the Sweat, and as you can see, we've got an NBA Showdown $1.25 million final shoot-around special. You can check out the DK lobby for your shot at more than $1 million in total prizes, part of the NBA Showdown $1.25 million final showdown shoot-around special. For just $25, you can enter a Showdown Captain Mode lineup, and you can net a grand prize of $250,000. That sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Lineups lock 9 p.m. tonight. Get those lineups in. And right now, over the course of the next little bit, we're going to advise you on how you should build those lineups to give you the best shot to win. And with that, we're going to welcome in a couple of our NBA experts. We will bring back Mac Meiselman as well as Nick Fryer. Fryer from baseball on to hoops, but he had time to prepare, so don't worry about him. He's going to tell you everything you need to know. Guys, again, it's Showdown Captain Mode. That's important. No surprise, the two most expensive options are Steph Curry and Jason Tatum, but Nick, are they the best option at captain?
Look, I do think that they're good options. I think Tatum has shown versatility in his game. You can absolutely go and back him tonight. But if you're looking at trying to maybe roster those two guys or maybe roster a couple other mid-tier guys, I do think Marcus Smart at 11.7K is a good option because when you look at what he's done when the Celtics have lost games in the postseason, he's missed 2 of those games, but then in the other 4, he scored at least 18 points and logged either 7+ assists or 7+ rebounds. Of course, you can get you a couple steals mixed in there too and rack up both assists and rebounds at the same time, not just exclusive to one or the other. He's coming off too bad of a game to not respond here. Whether you're looking at 3-point shooting, whatever it is, he is going to clap back. So in rostering him, like I said, gives you a ton of flexibility when you're trying to put maybe those 2 stars we're talking about, Steph Curry and Jason Tatum, on your roster, or maybe another guy, Jaylen Brown, who you want to feature as well.
Well, Lord knows, Matt, paying down a captain gives you more flexibility and utility, obviously, but, what's the move here?
So I do like Marcus Smart a lot also. Not sure about him as a captain, so I'll come back to that, but Tatum does deserve to be the highest owned captain on the slate. The problem is for tournaments, if other people are onto that, then it's just hard. I mean, it's hard price-wise to play Tatum in the captain slot and make a competent lineup. The one caveat I'll give is that if we do find out that Gary Payton and or Otto Porter don't play, it's just easier to fit those guys in. So I'm not sure yet, right? This is going to depend a little bit on what the injury news looks like. But I'm going to say Tatum does make sense as the top captain choice. I do think you can consider going down into that mid-range or just playing Jaylen Brown. But ultimately, I think there's a case for everyone, in my mind, except for maybe Steph Curry, who I just think will be as owned as Tatum. But I think Tatum is just a better play. So if you're paying up, I like Tatum over Curry. But I do kind of like paying down too. And I think Brown and also Smart are good choices there. So,
Mize, if you are going to go Tatum, if you're going 16-2 in the captain spot, yeah, you can fit another stud in, obviously, in your utility, but more than likely you're going to look for a little bit of value to stack with that captain. So who is it?
So I'm going to talk about 2 guys, and one of them will be brief because Nick already mentioned him. The only thing I'll add on Smart is I do think that his ownership will be substantially lower than a lot of these other guys in the 7 to 8K range, just because of the results of the series so far. So I just think people aren't really going to want to play him as much, just given how he's been so far. And I do think, like, we've talked about this throughout the week, Smart's loss of minutes is circumstantial. Peyton Pritchard and Derek White were just amazing in game one, so Smart stayed on the bench. Game two was a blowout. And I think in a normal game, Smart plays more. But the other guy I'll mention quickly is Robert Williams, who only played 14 minutes last game. I think is fine. He's had 2 days off now. And that's another guy who I think people are going to be scared of. I think we can all agree that less Daniel Tice for this game is likely. And as long as Time Lord is reasonably healthy, I do think the Celtics want to keep him on the court as much as he can handle. So I think this is more of an ownership play too, but I do think the upside for Williams is pretty high.
Less Daniel Tice is likely. It's hopeful. Nick, what do you think? Who's the ideal guy to stack with your captain?
Well, I'm looking at trying to find a couple value guys for you because, as I mentioned already, if you go and have Smart, that alone, you can go and have a couple of higher price options like Steph Curry and or Jason Tatum, maybe Brown as well. But featuring a salary saver too is going to make a big difference in trying to do that as well. I know you guys are talking about Daniel Tice, and yeah, he's probably not going to get a ton of minutes, but he has played in those first 2 games, and we haven't seen Grant Williams get as many minutes as he normally does. So at 1.6K, that's a guy who could help you save quite a bit of salary and still has a chance to get you some points. The other guy who I like a little bit more, if he does play, because he is one of those guys that's listed as questionable, is Andre Iguodala, a little bit cheaper at 1K versus Daniel Tice. You can see 1.6K. With Iguodala, look, if he's cleared to play, we know he's going to play, and he's going to get his 12 to 15 minutes, and he can get you a little bit of everything out there. Most importantly, though, with these 2 guys where they can get you a little bit of points, they're going to allow you to roster guys who can rack them up big time.
Who's the total fade tonight, Nick?
So, I mean, Draymond Green's got to be the guy in this one. I understand that he does a little bit of everything. We're talking about all these guys who can do that. Of course, he is, I mean, when you look at him, 10.5K, 7K for his utility spot, I just think he's asking for too much trouble. You know, we talk about numbers and everything, but when you're looking at narrative, this guy where he's saying so much off the floor right now, and I would imagine the refs are going to call him a little bit tighter than they have been just because, like, you go and say some of the dumb things that he said, you're asking for it. So I think he's someone who you need him to get his minutes in order to get the production that he provides. And I'm just worried he's going to get those minutes tonight.
Yeah, I mean, if you feel like you're getting preferential treatment, Matt, maybe don't advertise it. Maybe just enjoy it and move on with your life.
Yeah, this is a weird situation. I mean, just to add one more thing to Nick's point before I pick my own guy, Draymond's only 7K, and he's much cheaper than the rest. He's cheaper than the rest of the other players in this price range. Like, he's right at the bottom of, I guess, the starters who are playing big minutes range. That's how I'll say it. So he's going to be the most popular of those guys. For that reason alone, you could consider fading him. But yes, if there's a likelihood he's going to get in foul trouble or have some issues with the refs, that's just an additional reason to look away from him. But the other guy I'm looking to fade, who may not even play at all, is Otto Porter. And if he's questionable with a foot injury, and that's for real, then it kind of means that he's probably re-aggravated it. And he's been really good in the finals so far, but less minutes is on the table. Like, I don't know that we're going to get anything totally concrete from Steve Kerr. He's been a little vague with the updates as far as like what his rotation will look like. We didn't know going into game 1 if Gary Payton was going to play at all. Going into game 2, we knew he'd be in the rotation, but he saw 25 minutes. Like, that was a little surprising. I don't think we're going to get a clear answer on how much Porter will play if he plays, but if Iguodala is available and Payton's available and Porter's available, we could see Porter's minutes shrink a bit as they try to keep him fresh for the rest of the series. Like, this is a really important player for them, and of course they don't want to lose him for the series, and he does tend to get hurt a lot. So I think we could see Porter play only like 10 or 12 minutes in this game, and at 4.6K and also a semi-popular value play, I think you just stay away from that.
Guys, the last, only, and most important question that has nothing at all to do with DFS or even the sportsbook necessarily. And Matt, we're going to start with you because I already know your answer. Straight prediction, who's going to win game 3?
Do I have to say it? Do you want me to put the words out? Because everyone knows.
Speak it into existence, would you?
The Celtics are winning game 3. We'll worry about game 4 later, but I still feel good. I think the Celtics are winning game 3 and the series.
Matt's all in on 7-0 after a loss this postseason. What about you, Nick?
I am as well. I mean, I think you're coming back at home. This is not it's not a must-win game. Every game's kind of a must-win game in a way for either of these teams. But I think when you look at the Celtics right now, they've been too good after a loss this throughout the postseason. I think they cover in this one too. I'm putting it at like they win by 8 points, might even be double digits again. Because I do think that if they get out to a big enough lead, the Warriors are kind of going to hedge and say, you know what, all right, let's just rest our guys and get ready for Friday, since this is the shortest bit of rest that we've seen so far in the finals.
And Adam goes to bed happy. I love it. Love it, guys. Thank you very much. We're going to wrap up the sweat with golf on the other side. Stay tuned. We are back with a little PGA Tour price check. Welcome in here on The Sweat. We're going to bring in Jeff Ulrich as well as Len Hochberg. We got a DK contributor, a man from RotoWire. It's great to see you both, obviously. Checking in on DFS as well as, well, if we have time, Sportsbook, mostly DFS here on the RBC Canadian Open. Guys, begins this weekend. We are all excited. We have 6 guys at the event with a salary over $10K. That's highlighted by Scotty Scheffler. Favorite DFS play from that group? Len, we'll start with you.
Yeah, Adam, good to be with you. Jeff, hello. This is a challenging week. There are a lot of big-name guys at the very top, all those $10,000 guys. But the field falls very far and hard and fast after that. There are only about 19 or 20 guys in the top 100 in the world. If you're going to pay up for one of those guys, you're really going to have to dip into a guy who's far, far back in the world rankings. I'm not sure I'm willing to do that. But since you asked me who my favorite play in that tier is, I'm going to say Rory McIlroy. I really don't think you can go wrong. I expect most of these guys to do well, certainly in this poor field. McIlroy has been playing well just about every week. Top 10s in 2 recent majors. We have 3 very short par 5s on this course. He should chew them up, and a lot of his scoring should come from those 3 holes.
Regularly making the cut, 12 out of 13, obviously, here so far, Jeff. So north of 10K, who stands out to you?
Yeah, I mean, there's absolutely nothing else going on in the golf world right now. So let's talk about these 10K guys. Look, I mean, Roy, it's hard to get off Rory at this event. You know, he's been top 20 the last 4 starts. The TD Green game is first in long-term and short-term form, even with guys like Scheffler and Thomas in the field. So Rory is obviously playing at a high level. But my main worry with Rory is just it seems like everyone's just taking the discount and going to start with Rory. Like, it's almost like they think, well, Scheffler and Thomas are just here for to just get a little bit of warm up in, and they're not going to compete. I mean, I think that for GPPs, it's actually become to the point where fading Rory might actually be the play. Like, you're going to have to go 40, 50% owned Rory McIlroy if you're doing 10 or 20 or more lineups to go overweight him. So there is a path here. I actually really like pivoting to Cam Smith too, is probably, I think, the way to go. I think you look at this course setup, if one of these guys is going to take Rory on directly, I think Cam Smith at 10-3 is someone who could do it, simply for the fact that he's struck the ball actually better on approach than Rory. If we're looking over the last few events, he had 11 strokes on approach at the PGA Championship. And then, again, one area where Cam Smith certainly has Rory's number is around the greens. And these are just small, tricky green structures. So I think pivoting to Cam Smith, maybe using Cam Smith with Rory too is a unique way to begin lineups. That could work. But I'll say Cam Smith is the probably preferred GPP play for me, for the simple fact you should get lower ownership on him than Rory, who looks like he's going to be the heavy chalk this week.
Talking about Tony Finau without Reed Fowler around feels kind of like talking about Robbie Ray without Steve Buchanan on the show, but we just have to do it, guys. I guess it's in the script, it's in the prompter here. Tony Finau, $9,400, Jeff. He's made the cut in 6 straight events. He's finished T41 or better in all of those, including tied for second at the Mexico Open and tied for 4th 2 weeks ago at the Charles Schwab Challenge. So could this be the week? Could it possibly be the week that Finau breaks through for a win and gives you some bang for your buck?
How much did Reed pay you to do this segment? How much did he pay you to put it in the script? Just tell me. Come on. How much?
He transferred me DK crowns is what it was.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, you're easy to buy. So,
yeah.
Look, there's 2 guys I like in the 9K range quite a bit. One of them's not Finau. I think there's a good argument. You could say, well, Finau's just a little bit too cheap for this field. But I like going up to Matthew Fitzpatrick this week. Again, I think you need to look at how this course is set up. It's just really not going to be a place where Tony Finau's sitting out there bombing the ball. It's a short course. It's barely over 7,000 yards. And I think the only reason they've listed it over 7,000 yards is to just say that it's bigger than 7,000 yards. I think it's actually going to play more like 6,900 yards. And it's going to be a really easy setup for these players. That means iron play, putting. To me, that's Matthew Fitzpatrick and a guy named Chris Kirk at 9,100. I think those are the 2 plays. You look at Fitzpatrick, obviously coming off a missed cut at Memorial. A lot of people be disappointed there, but he gained over 2 strokes off the tee and on approach at Memorial. He just had a disaster week with the putter. Matthew Fitzpatrick is probably the best putter in this field. That's an anomaly. He's played extremely well on shorter courses in his career. He's got a couple wins at Crans and the Omega European Tour Masters over his career, which is actually a very technical kind of comparable setup. And then you got Chris Kirk at 9,100. Just feels like he's going to go overlooked because people don't want to pay $9K for Chris Kirk. He didn't play well last week, but he's been very consistent. And again, you look at the setup of this course, very, very much where Chris Kirk has his most success, shorter par 70s, Colonial, Sony Open. So give me Kirk and Fitzpatrick in this range. I'll let Reed Fowler roster Tony Finau, not me.
Yeah, he's tied up this week anyway. He's probably not playing him.
Tied up the rest of his life, unfortunately.
Len, Finau fan or
the
what?
Kids.
Well, I've had no contact with Reed Fowler before coming on, but I do like Tony Finau. And I do want to address one point that Jeff made. I mean, some of these guys, we're going to look at their prices and we go, well, I'm not paying for that guy. I'm not paying $9,100 for Chris Kirk, just to use that as an example. I think pretty much most of the guys in this field are going to be higher priced. That's just what it is this week. And we got to get past that mental stumbling block of not wanting to pay out because that's what they're worth in this field. But Tony Finau has about 10 or 11 guys on the DraftKings board who are ahead of him. He's not even the upper 9s. He's in the lower 9s. And we think of Tony Finau as a long hitter, as a bomber. But he's just coming off another top 5 at Colonial, at the Charles Schwab. And, he's really starting to come around. He was second in Mexico. So he's starting to come back after a really dry period following his win at the Northern Trust. He's another guy like Rory McIlroy should eat up those par 5s. And I think the fact that the greens are very small will help Tony Finau, poor putter. I think it could eliminate a lot of opportunity for 3 putts. I think he does better on short courses than we give him credit for.
Guys, we're talking 9s, we're talking 10s, but what about the value in this tournament, Len? Who stands out?
Yeah, there are a few guys I always like to go to in shorter courses. They really can't compete on the longer tracks. They really have to make the bulk of their money in the 6, 7, 8 tournaments a year in which these shorter courses. Brendan Todd, 8,200, really favorably priced, coming off 3rd at Colonial. I keep saying the Colonial, the Charles Schwab. He could. Another guy I like is Tyler Duncan. I'm sure I've mentioned him here. He's been probably, when I've mentioned him, he's been $6,300. He is $7,500 this week. That is sticker shock for Tyler Duncan. But he was 15th at Colonial, 12th at Harbortown short course. And I want to throw out a mention of one other guy making his pro debut, Chris Gotterup, the Haskins Award winner from Oklahoma. These guys come out of college ready to go. He just qualified for the U.S. Open. He was 7th in Puerto Rico as an amateur, 6,300, maybe your best play in the 6,000s.
Okay, we have time for one more. We're going to go relatively quick with it. Your favorite DFS play at St. George's this week for the RBC Canadian Open. Jeff, since you're Canadian, naturally we just have to start with you.
Thanks for asking me about my value picks too, Kaufman. I do like David Lipsky as a value. But my favorite play is going to be Chris Kirk, 9,100. Again, I just don't think that many people are going to get on Chris Kirk at this price. But him and Fitzpatrick both due for bounce back after slow week in Memorial, and I love the setup for him.
All right. And Len?
Yeah, Brendan Todd for me. I mean, I think he might be highly owned because of the attractive price at 8,200. But if you think a guy is going to win the tournament, you can't stay away from him because other people are going to play him. Find your separation elsewhere.
Here's the good news, guys. If you were worried about not getting enough of Jeff Ulrich's value picks, we do have the slate coming up a little bit later on today after the 4 o'clock Madden Sim. Right around 5:15, Jeff will be on with Colin Sherwin. It's all golf talk. It's all RBC Canadian Open previews, and it's all value on the part of Jeff. So get into that. Make sure you tune in. The Madden Sims begin at noon, which is minutes from now. We want to thank everyone who was both on the show and off. Samir, who I'm staring right in the eye right now. Tom, Cody, Billy's around. Drew, no one I want to thank more than Howie. Howie is my favorite. I want to thank him for yesterday, too. I'm Adam Kaufman. See you later.